take your paper and glue it to a piece of cardboard, and that's going to help you cut it out, and keeping everything labeled so you know where it goes. That's what I've done. Once your pieces are cut out, it's time to start putting it together. Now you have to make sure that the shoulder here, that it mirrors itself. For instance, I already started one hand, so this is gonna be a left arm and hand. So the other one has to be a right arm and hand. And so you have to make sure that this part is coming in this direction. If you make this piece go in that direction, then you're gonna end up with two left hands. You also have to remember that you have to place the thumb in the right place as well. So I'm gonna show you how to start putting this together. You take this piece, and like I just said, we need to make, let's see, actually we're gonna make a right, because this is for, remember that I'm working on two, so this is for the other one that I'm working on. So we already have this one, and that's a right hand, so now we need to make a left hand. So now we're gonna take this piece and we're gonna put it on here like this. Take this piece and you're going to put it on there like that. Make sure it's lined up from the top and the bottom, and let that dry. Okay, the next thing is we're going to take the forearm. So you take the forearm and we're going to attach that piece here. Make sure you get a little bit on the bicep piece. And attach that piece there. And we're going to do the same thing on the other end. And we're going to attach this piece right there. And that is going to be, we're going to lay that down for a little while. This part with the curves is where that's where your fingers are going to go attached to. So you take this part of the palm and we're going to put glue on the top. And we're just going to take this part of the forearm and we're going to glue it right there to the top. And if it doesn't fit perfectly, that's okay. And now I'm going to put some glue on the bottom, and it didn't fit perfectly, so I'm going to go all the way out to the edge. And now I'm going to take this piece, it's all stuck together because of the hot glue, and I'm going to put that right there. I'm going to turn that around because I want that connection to be a little bit stronger, and I'm going to put some glue there on the back just to make it a bit stronger. And I'm going to put a little drop of glue in between and here in the middle. Let me untangle this and I'll be back once I untangle it. Okay, that's been untangled for the most part, so now we're going to do the same thing to the back, but not with the pieces that are for the knuckles. You do it with the piece that's an oval. And just gonna put a little bit there. All right, now you want to let that just sit for a little while. Now we can start working on the fingers. Now the pieces that are cut, you're gonna bend those pieces. So you're gonna bend those pieces so they're flexible. And you're probably gonna have to trim the thumbs up. Not just the thumbs, but all the fingers. And you could do this a few ways. I like to just put a piece of hot glue here, right in the center. And then I take this piece that bent and I start it right from the top. And I usually just put it on just like that. Try to bend it so it fits, because the whole thing should fit. And it gets a little sticky, but that's fine. It's gonna get a little bit messy. And we can go ahead and reinforce that as well. Do the same thing to the other side. Careful not to touch the glue because it's still drying. And that's pretty much the same step that you're going to follow for all of the other fingers. But what I find sometimes is that maybe it's a little bit too wide. You don't want it to be too thin, but it's okay to just take off a little bit, and I'll show you how to do that right now. So I do think this is too wide, so I'm just gonna just even it out a little bit. And this cardboard is a little bit flimsy, but it'll still work. Just try to make sure that it stays. Okay, you're going to do that with the rest of the fingers. So you fold these pieces, try to make sure that for the pinky, middle, and the forefinger, and you fold them and you glue them on the side like this, like we did for this, until you have all 4 fingers. This is Yoshi has 4 fingers. I'm going to do that off camera and I'll be right back with all of that done. If it ends up being a little bit too wide, like this one, then that's when you have to take your scissors and you can trim it. And it might take some adjusting and readjusting, but just try to make sure that it's as centered as possible. And I have all of them done here. And I'll show you what we're going to do next before we attach these. Okay, go ahead and get yourself a piece of cardboard and fold it over a few times. Make sure that it's really stiff. Because we're going to need it for the next step. See, now that's very stiff. Now the next step is, this is how we're going to form the fingers. So you take this, and the same way that we did the eyes, you're going to fill this in with hot glue, and then you're going to shape it with the hot glue gun. So this is just so you have somewhere to stick it to And that way it doesn't, you know, get all over your fingers. So I'll stick it to there, and then I'll start filling in all those gaps, and just reinforce it a bit. And then of course you're gonna have to tear it off later, but that's gonna help a lot. And I'll show you one, and then I'll do the rest off camera. And I had discussed the idea of using aluminum foil in the first video, but the truth is that it would be too difficult to remain consistent, meaning that your fingers might be different sizes and things like that. Like how much foil do you fold to get it to be the right thickness? So I figured that this way it just takes a little while, which is probably the most complicated part of all of this, but it really does give a great result. Okay, I think that's maybe filled in enough. This is going to be done in a few different layers, so don't expect it to get it all done in one go. Meaning I'll have to apply the top and then I'll do the bottom separately so that the glue doesn't just randomly fall. And you should already have some experience with that. You are going to need plenty of hot glue. Plenty of hot glue. Okay, so we're not just going to sit here and watch this glue dry, so I'm going to add a few more layers. First I'm going to wait for that layer to dry, and then I'll come back on camera and add the next layer. And actually where we're going to put this, it might be might present a challenge as well. You might just have to hold it for a while, or use your palm piece and just put it face down like this. And that's pretty good. And let that dry. Actually, something that might be a good idea is just knock out two birds with one stone. So take that same rigid piece, and we're gonna glue another finger on this end. That way when we do the tops of all of them, we could do all of them, and we don't have to go back and forth and back and forth. So hold that there for a second, and I might just glue the other fingers on here, and that way I could just, you know, knock it all out as quick as possible. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. Now that I've made this little apparatus, I'm gonna start filling in all those empty spaces with hot glue. You might have to give the hot glue gun a little bit of an opportunity to catch up, because I don't think it could heat that quickly. Yeah. Once you've laid on the hot glue very, very thick, then you can start shaping it, and in any gaps that might form, then you need to add more hot glue. But this should take a while. This isn't going to be an easy step. But hands are notoriously difficult. So I'll sit here for a while until this is smooth, and eventually it'll work, and it doesn't really take that long. Just want to get all the bumps out of there. I'm not going to do all of these on camera. I won't do all of them. See right here, it's a little weak, so we're going to add a little bit more. And just let that dry. Work on another area until that dries up a bit more, and then you can come back and work on that area. Right here there's a little gap as well. I'll move on to another one while that's drying. Okay, and that's what you're gonna do until they are more or less like this one, which is very, it's almost done. And ultimately what we want is for it to be like this. And I'm gonna finish that off camera. It took a long time, but I finally got something that I'm happy with. So now it's time to start taking them off. And if they come off in flat pieces, that's great. This one didn't. So I think we can cut through the hot glue. It takes a little bit of work and it might screw with your scissors a bit, but it'll work. Yeah, that cut right through it. Now you have to assess which is the pinky, which is the middle finger, which is, so I think this is the smallest one, so this is probably the pinky. And I can show you how it, you see it's not perfect, so we're just gonna cut that. Now, which is the longest one? This seems like the longest one, so I think that's the middle finger. This is the thumb, which is like the thickest one. So now we take this, which is our palm, and the pinky goes at the end, but I'm gonna make it the opposite of this, right? So this goes like this, so the pinky would go here. And they are big fingers. So the middle one would go here, but I want to make sure it fits, so I'm just gonna take away this little extra trim. And that's gonna go right here. And hopefully we have enough space for our forefinger. It's not looking very good, so I'm gonna have to force this to the side. And then we're gonna have to trim a lot of this away to have this possibly fit here. That's actually the thumb, so here's the forefinger. That's a little bit better. But still, those are really fat fingers. So I am probably gonna trim it quite a bit. So here we go. And just from the edge, start to thin that out. Thin out the other side just a little bit. Of course, it would help to have a good pair of scissors for this part. Alright, now let's try that again. That's much better. Still a little bit fatter than I like. So I'm going to take off the pinky, and I'll do that to the pinky. I think I'm happy with that middle finger. But that pinky is too fat. And if this isn't sticking off for you, you just reinforce it at the bottom and just hold it, and it should be okay. And it actually feels like maybe this one is bigger. than this one. So that's why it's important to kind of try to keep track of it if you can. But I didn't keep good track of it, so now I pay the price. So let's do this one, which it looks like the biggest one in the center. Let's trim what we thought was the pinky, which is this one. Is this the pinky? So that would go here on the left. Yeah. So I'm going to trim this one to thin it out a bit. So I think that's hopefully a little bit better. Yeah, I think that's a little bit better. Still, I would like it a little thinner on this end. Oh, that was a good chunk removed. Sorry if this video is kind of boring with me just doing that. And that's a lot better. So now I'm gonna add that piece here. You could go back and just clean it up a bit. Actually, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna clean them up a bit. So I trimmed them down, but I still think they're too fat. I'm probably gonna redo that one because I want them just to be a little bit slimmer, like this. But I might just continue to rework it the way that I was. But the best thing to do is just when you're cutting your fingers, make sure that they're very thin. So if you make sure that they're very thin, I think you'll be okay. These were a little bit too chubby, and I think that's why that happened to me. It's always easier to make them chubbier. So just right in the beginning, just make sure that they are thin. Okay, so the next step as far as the frame is to attach this, but I'm not going to do that because I do want to make these fingers a bit skinnier. And I just attached the thumb like with some hot glue right here on the side, so that's how I did that. So I'm going to work on getting these skinnier, and then I'll continue filming. And that's just the way I've been doing. If I have to go all the way back to the very beginning, then I will. But for now, I think I'm just going to keep just shaving away at it. Shaving away. To try to make them nice and well, thinner anyways. I'm not going to film that because it's just boring. So I'm just going to keep cutting away at it. If you plan ahead, you won't have that mistake, so that won't happen to you. So just make sure that you cut them thin. With a lot of hard work, I think I got it down to a manageable size. I gotta put the thumb back on. I have to check the size of the thumb. I think the size of the thumb is okay. And also the positioning of the thumb. I kind of want it to be very similar to this one. So you gotta find the right spot. And maybe it's a little long. So I gotta lose a little bit because it's a little bit too long, I think. And that's the next step. Okay, after a lot of hard work, I got it to somewhere that I like as far as the thickness of the fingers. I just recommend cutting them thin right from the beginning. I'm gonna build up the knuckles here. And I'm also gonna cut away. I'm gonna cut away the excess back here. So any little extra bit. This you leave it because we're gonna fit some paper in there. And then I'm gonna glue the arm to it. And then I'll show you how you go from there. So this is the arm. You're just gonna put some glue here. And position it well. I kind of want the hands in a somewhat resting position. So I will try to keep it right here. And it might not stick on the first go, but then you could go back in and add more hot glue. So I'll go back in and add just some more glue here. And some more here, and it's falling on me, so I gotta hurry. And then hold it again. And wait till it dries. Be patient. Hold it. I'm still holding it. And then once they're positioned, they should more or less fall like that. But you can put it facing up, facing down. Understand that it's gonna kind of change the whole feel of it though, because hands are very expressive. And we're gonna put this paper. I don't think this is big enough to grid, so I'm gonna show you just how to put some tissue, and then we could paper mache. And we're not gonna paper mache over the fingers. We're just gonna use solid glue, and then paint over it the way we did with the bomb, and the way we're gonna do around the rim of the shell and the shoes. So the next step is now going to be to fill this area with tissue or toilet paper or napkins or whatever it is you have, or paper. And then I decided that I will tape it. I will tape it and then paper mache it, and then I will try to put it on. I'm not going to paper mache the fingers though, okay? So the fingers don't get paper mache. And remember to make these fingers, just make them thin. Don't make them too fat like I did, because then it's a lot of work to correct it. Alright, I'm going to show you how I did that. So, you know, I like to use tissue or napkins, but presumably this will work with a regular piece of paper as well. It just might be a little bit tougher. You have to get the paper to be the right size, because it will not be as flexible. And then you want to make sure it can fit in there. You put some glue and you just push it in there. This is the hands, of course. And I can't emphasize enough, like, you need to make sure that when you do your fingers, just make sure that they're small enough I actually ended up using a blade to shave a lot of it off, but I really don't recommend it because I had a few close calls. So just make sure that they are small enough. I'm going to do the same thing here. And for the long pieces like this, you take the tissue or your paper. Of course, it'll be different depending on what you use. And I'm going to put the hot glue here. And I'm going to jam this in here like this. And I'm not going to fold it over. I'm just going to put glue here and continue to extend that up. Once you have a piece like this, you can put glue here and you can fold that piece in on itself. And this is to do this without having to do the grid. If you want to do the grid, you can. Just I recommend maybe cutting the paper or the poster board in half, because this is very small. So I don't think that the grid is necessary. And you just do that all the way around until it's full. Once you stuff it completely, then you should tape it. I don't think it's necessary, but it's just as a precaution to make sure that everything holds together. You don't know how long this is gonna take, or you know, if you're gonna have to leave it overnight, you don't want the tissue falling out or something. And then after this step, which I'll come back and I'll show you this one taped up. After this step, we're just gonna paper mache 2 layers, and then we're gonna put solid glue here. I might just even just dip the whole hand in glue, which I'll show you that as well if I do it. And then we'll be ready to attach. So it's all taped up. Now I have to paper mache 2 layers, and then we're gonna cover the fingers in pure glue so we can paint over it. And then we'll be ready to attach them. And I'm kind of excited because we're almost done. We'll attach the arms and then we'll paint, and the project will be finished. The arms are done. They've been paper mached twice. And now it's just time to put them in. When it comes to putting them in, you want to make a reverse teardrop cut. And it's pretty sizable. Just try to find the best place for it and draw it out. And then you're gonna put glue on here and you're gonna jam that right in there as much as you can. You're gonna put tape on the outside and then you're gonna paper mache over that. So I actually ended up cutting that reverse teardrop a little bit wider just so I can maneuver the arms a little bit more. And then I had to position the arms in a place that ultimately I was happy with, and I kind of like them folded inside, not too high because then it feels kind of like zombie-ish or a bit scary, but ultimately you find something that you're happy with and you go with that. Now I'm gonna hot glue that in there, and then I'm going to put tape around the edge and I'm going to paper mache that. And I might put a little bit of stuffing into that hole, like areas like that. And then once it's paper mache, it'll be ready for paint. And I think that's turned out great so far. Okay, the hands and arms are on. Admittedly, I still have to paper mache. I applied some tape around here. And I have to paper mache that, but you've already seen that, so I think this is enough to post the video. I also have to put pure glue. Remember that over the fingers, we're gonna do pure glue so we could paint over it without it peeling off. And I did it over this one, but I still have to do it over this one. So I'm gonna do that. And for the next video, it'll be ready, but I don't think that I have to do that for the purposes of this video. This video was just to create the arms. You already know what paper macheing is like. The same process was done with the legs, etc. And I really do think we got a great result. And after this, all we have left to do is paint. See you next video.